Hello, welcome to RC Video Reviews. It is December 1st, man. Final month of the year. First Pilot Jam of December. And just like every other January, we're coming up on January really quick and we're going to start that whole 12-month ticker again. But we are in my favorite part of the year, man. I love this season. It's great for flying, great for being outside, the holidays, what's not to love about getting together with family, all the great movies, the traditions. I love it, man. My favorite time of the year. I'll tell you what, Fast Freddy, I think Fred can smell a helicopter. He can smell a helicopter through a video because we're going to talk a little bit about helicopters tonight. So Fast Freddy was in first, man, back on top. I see Fred. Shane was in right afterwards. Hobie, welcome to the show. Keith, how you doing? Dan Griffiths, hello. Jeff Burr, cold in Canada, I expect. Robert posted a little weather clip in the Discord about crazy weather, and he said it's like -16 and still no snow. Too bad. Too bad. Snow makes it worth it, doesn't it? How you doing, Wolfie? Glad you can make it. Gordon Goff is here. Hello, all. Bill is here. How you doing, Bill? Good to see you. Four Eyes is here. How you doing, my friend? The David Knutz from the great state of Texas is here. William Tam and Rogers RC Aviation. What's up, people? And let's see. Stan Heaton says hello. If you check in, make sure you say hello so we know who's there. And that's it. So let's get started. Week in review, kind of a short week on the videos, but not a short week on work. I can tell you that. The week on work was legit. I got the raw put together. I'm going to show you that. And I got a little bit of testing done. I fiddled around with a few new products. We're going to cover some of that. And yeah, so only on the video front, the only thing I did was the T-Motor. We took a look at the T-Motor AM780, and we took a look at the Raw 500, the first look. We did the kind of unbox and showed you what was in the box, what you get from the factory. And boy, those SAB helis are just so nice. If you're into helicopters at all, treat yourself to an SAB sometime. If you've never done one, they're just really something. Although mine was not perfect this time. We'll cover a little bit of that. So that was it. A little short on the video production side, but still a very busy week nonetheless. So that's it for the week in review. Cap Bryce here. Work on. How you doing? How you doing, Cap Bryce? Good to see you, man. Thanks for joining. Okay, so that covers the week in review. That was quick. Short one. And of course, the Pilot Jam. That's what we're here for. All right. First thing we're going to do is a little calibration thing. And the reason I'm going to do this, number one, I had a question in comments that got me thinking about it. And you guys, we've done calibration before, but I had an interesting little thing to show you tonight. So what I'm going to do is just bring some stuff into view for you. There's a couple of different points I want to make. The first one is I made the investment in the Fluke 87.5. That's right here. You guys have heard me talk about the VenLab VM600. Very good device. And I got a battery checker on Black Friday. It's the Batco. I've used these before. This is the ISDT Batco, 8GS or whatever that number is. I forget the number. I think it's an 8GS. Yeah, there it is. BG8S. BG8S. Okay, Batco, I guess that stands for 8S battery. Brand new out of the box. And I thought what I wanted to do is give you guys an idea when I talk about calibration as to why. We're going to explore together. The only thing I've done with this so far is I powered it up. I did not do any checking at all. I powered it up and I turned the brightness down so it would present well on camera, and I turned the beeps off so that while we're going through it, I don't have to deal with the beeps. This is a brand new battery checker. And the reason I'm doing this is because I had a question in comments this week and it got me thinking, not everyone knows. Not everyone knows. You have to calibrate this stuff. And it's a mistake if you don't. I would highly advise you, don't just trust these devices out of the box. It may seem like it's okay, but I'm a big fan of calibrating. I'm going to take that off too. I don't know what that is, sticker. Okay, so brand new, just got this out of the box. And all I'm going to do first is I've got a little test rig set up right here. So I'm going to turn this sideways so you guys can see the data on the screen, and I'm going to plug it in. This has been plugged in one other time simply to turn off the beeps and to bring the brightness down so you could see it. That's it. That's all I did. All right, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put my test leads on the board. Now, one set of these test leads is going to the VenLab. Now, the reason I want to do this is because there's this question about accuracy, right? And the VenLab, it's a budget multimeter, and I wanted to show you guys how it performs against a non-budget multimeter side by side. right out of the box on a brand new device. So one of these sets of leads is set up for the VenLab, and I'm going to connect those now. Again, I'm not going to calibrate tonight. I'm just going to show you. All I want to do is show you why you need to calibrate, and I want to give you a look at how the VenLab compares to the Fluke. That's it. That's what this is about. And again, I'm doing this because I had a question in the comments this week that went directly to the question of calibration. And my response to the person that asked the question was calibrate your stuff. All right, so here's what we've got. We've got our brand new battery checker. And I don't know if you guys can see it or not. I hope you can. In fact, I think I have a way. Give me just a second. I have a way to zoom this in. I'm going to try and cheat a little bit and see if I can zoom this in some. There we go. That's a little bit zoomed in. Okay, out of the box, here's what I see. I had to get my pointer. Shut up. Don't judge me. All right. Out of the box, cell number 1, 3.789. And on the Fluke, 3.795. So that's 6, 10, 100 thousandths off. And then here's the VenLab, the VM600. Just for comparison's sake, 3 thousandths off from the Fluke. This is the one that I trust the most. I'm going to consider that to be the most accurate. So 3.798. But if you consider it from a rounding perspective, if you were willing to round, this would be 3.8 and this would be 3.8. So very, very close. Only 3 thousandths off. And from the meter, we're about 5 thousandths off, 6 thousandths off. And compared to this one, 9 thousandths off. So this is why you got to calibrate, right? Because right now, if you had 2 meters, what I would probably do, I believe the Fluke, but if not, I might take the average. I might say, well, this one's 3.795, 3.98. I'm going to go ahead and calibrate to 3.797 probably, or 796. I might do that. Okay, so the second cell, 3.791. Let's go ahead and move the lead. So I'll move the Fluke first. So there's the second cell, and here's the second cell on the VenLab. And let's just see how we are. How are we doing? So this is 3.798, 3.795, pretty close, 3 thousandths off. And this one, 3.791. So not bad. It's not bad, but clearly it's not right? It needs to be adjusted. Let's see. What I'm really looking for, those aren't too bad. That doesn't really upset me too much because that's pretty close. But I want to see if something jumps off the page at me, kind of like this one. This one, we've got 3.791. That's not too bad. 6 thousandths off and 9 thousandths off on the VenLab. So the VenLab continues to be running a little bit hot, I would say, but still pretty close. If you look at the difference between these two, that's pretty close. 3 thousandths, man, that's close. All right, let's check the next one. This is number 4. One, two, three, 4. Oops, I know what I did wrong. 1, 2, 3. Here's number 4. I had it on a 5-cell terminal. I'm like, I'm missing a pin here. So that was number 3. I need number 4. There we go. One, 2, 3, 4. There we go. There's number 4. And let me move this one over to number 4 as well. There we go, number 4. Okay, so cell number 4, 3.788, 3.795, so 7 thousandths. And then this one is a full 100th off, right? So that's 100th off. This is 788. This is 798. So yeah, that's 100th off based on the VenLab. That's still not terrible, but now we're starting to get to a point where I'd be a little more concerned. And I definitely would want that to be closer. And the reason why is because there is a difference between peaking at 4.2 and peaking at 4.21. There's also a really big difference between sagging at 3.3 and sagging at 3.2, right? So that's where the calibration comes in and why I say it's important to do it. Let's see if it gets any worse than that. I'm going to move on to number 5 and number 5. There we go. Okay, there we go. Number five, set 3.786, 3.98. Okay, now I've got a problem because that is definitely showing me at least 1/100th off, and that's too much for me. So calibration's required, and that just proved the point. That's the point of doing this segment for you guys, to show you, don't just take it out of the box and think you're okay. You should calibrate. This one's, and keep in mind, you know, it's not like I'm saying this is going to start a fire or anything, but that's not accurate enough for my taste. I would really prefer that to be closer. So we're a full 11 thousandths off right there. 3.787. That's 798. Yeah, we're too far off for my taste on that one. And then this one, again, even a little bit more off, right? That's a little bit more. 13, 14. Okay, here we go. Last one, and we'll be done with this. We're just looking for problem areas. Oh, this one's actually pretty close. 3.792, 795, and 798. So that one's pretty close. So at least one cell, you know, where I'd say, hold on, time out. You know, I don't want to use that in production until I calibrate that. And that was the purpose of doing the video. I wanted to show you two things really. I wanted to show you the out-of-box calibration for a pretty decent cell checker. You know, admittedly, it's pretty good, but it needs a little bit of work. And then I wanted to show you the other big thing I really wanted to show you is these two side by side, and to show you why the accuracy matters in production. So the VenLab actually pretty strong showing. I would say that if you calibrated this battery checker to the VenLab, you'd be fine. I wouldn't see anything that I would consider dangerous, right? So VenLab VM600, really nice little multimeter for accuracy. And of course, the Fluke is a industry standard. Okay, that's it for calibration. And again, we're going to touch on this just briefly a little later on when we get into the Q&A. But you know, one of the questions that was presented had to do with why am I seeing these variances? And my response back to the person who asked the question was, make sure that you calibrate your gear. It is important to calibrate your gear. So just a quick little segment there on calibration. It is important, guys, to calibrate your stuff. Don't just take it out of the box and think because it came from the factory that way that it's right. But the other thing that I would caution you on is if you have little cheap hoopty multimeters, don't use those, right? You use something that's got a known quality record. The VenLab, I think, is pretty good. Obviously, the Fluke is pretty good. So make sure you're using good gear in order to do your calibrations. Okay. That's it. I'm going to check comments before I move on. Then we'll get moving on to the next subject. Fred, let's see. Hi, Dave. Hey, work on. Let's see. Good. Mine works great for balancing cells. The 8S. Yeah, it's a good one. I like it. What if it's spot on? Well, if it's spot on, you're lucky, but I don't think I've ever really had one spot on, which is why I was willing to do that live. But it's pretty rare that they're exactly on. I'll tell you the closest devices that I've ever pulled out of the box that gave me something resembling being spot on were the iChargers. The iChargers are really, really accurate. So I like them. But yeah, it's a good idea to calibrate. All right, that's it. No comments, no other comments that I have to address. So I guess that means we get to move on. Oh, this is a fun segment, the electrical cleaner. So the reason this came up is because I did a video with the microscope, and you guys have seen the microscope, right? I think we can switch to this, and I think I can bring this on. And there we go. And then, let's see. I think I have to do a little bit of work here like this. And I need to make a little adjustment. There we go. Just rearranging the cameras so you guys can see what's going on. So the reason this one came up is because I did a video, and in the video, I showed an electronics device that wasn't cleaned. And one of my good friends on EdgeTX, who is very highly knowledgeable on electronics, said, hey, man, you got to clean that stuff. So here's a board that I did. If you're not familiar with it, this is one of those converter boards. This is one of those breakout boards, the Maytech CRSF PWM-C that I used for a while before we got our PWM pins directly on our Express LRS receivers. You guys remember that? So there it is. That's just one of those little breakout boards. There you go. The camera's got it now. And this one takes the receiver. You also got current and voltage off of this. And I soldered my pins on. It's actually been a little dinged up because it's been stuffed in a stash box. But I wanted to show this to you just to give you an example of what I'm going to do and why it matters to clean this stuff. But take a look at that surface. That's the way I left it. I didn't soak it in alcohol or do any other kind of treatment, but you can see after just sitting in a box for a little bit of time, how you're already starting to see some deterioration on the contacts. So I was informed of, I wonder if I have, I did. How about that? Give me a second. I'm just going to make another little adjustment. There we go. There we go. I was informed about this contact cleaner. I never really even thought about it, and it wasn't this particular brand, but I did a little searching on Google. I found, or on Amazon, and I found this AK Fix A60 electrical contact cleaner. I got this on Black Friday for $6. Some of the other bottles of this aerosol type spray that I saw were upwards of $20 a bottle. So I did a little shopping and I found this. I put a link in the description. It's no longer on sale. It's no longer on sale for the same price. I think this can will cost you about $13 now. But it is a contact cleaner. And I wanted to share it with you guys because, to be honest with you, I never gave it any thought. I never really even thought, hey, I need to clean my workpieces after I'm done. So what I thought I would do is give you guys a look at a board. I just pulled this out of my stash. I did not do anything to prepare this. I just pulled it out, put it on the microscope and said, look at that. Look how nasty that looks. And I thought I would give you a little demo of what this stuff does. So what I'll do, and by the way, be very careful, treat it almost like brake cleaner. It's not, don't spray this on things like your monitor, or if you have a nice desk, don't do that. Use something that you don't mind destroying, because I expect that I've already ruined one desk blotter with it, and I expect it'll do a number on paint and other surfaces. Okay. So all I'm going to do is just hit it real quick. Just spray it. And it is electrical contact safe, right? So that's all I did was just spray it. And now I'm just going to drop it back on there and give you guys a look at how cleaned up that is. And that's not using a Q-tip or anything else, but look at the difference in there. So that's pretty massive compared to where we started. And again, I'm not an electrician, so these kinds of concepts, they come up from time to time. I get advice from people who know better than I do. And I listen to certain people, and I'm glad I did, because I think that kind of makes a difference. I wanted to also show you on this one, same kind of concept, right? Here's another board that I have. I don't use this board anymore, but this one was actually soldered at the factory. And you can see the difference not only in the soldering, but how clean it is after the fact. And that kind of gave me this concept of a point of reference, where if I'm doing this kind of work and coming up with that little mess that we just saw a little while ago, and the factory where they do mass production does this kind of work, that it probably does make sense to make sure you clean your surfaces after you're done. So I just wanted to share that with you guys really quickly to give you an idea. Again, this is called, this bottle is called AK Fix. I do have an affiliate link in the description if you'd like to get this. It's on Amazon, and it is an affiliate link. So obviously if you buy it, the channel gets a little kickback, but we're talking about a $12 bottle. It's not going to be much, believe me. But anyway, it's just a nice little thing to have in your stash. And I would suggest using it because it does kind of clean up your workpieces and helps prevent corrosion, removes that flux, and just cleans the board, prevents the board from getting etched and so on. So a nice little addition to your repertoire of doing electronics work on the bench. So I'm going to check comments, and then that's it for this little topic. Right out of the box, what's up? 40 watching, 18 likes. Yeah, if you guys don't mind hitting the like button, that'd be awesome. And thanks, Robert, for getting on the like whip. That's a great point for me to pause too and make sure I give a shout out to my patrons. I do want to say thanks to my patrons. You guys are the ones that help me find this stuff. You're the ones that help me fund this stuff and do the work and test it and say, yep, this seems worthwhile, or nope, I don't mention it or I don't tell you about it. So I do want to say thanks to patrons and remind you, if you'd like to help out, you like the content you see on RC Video Reviews, patreon.com/RC Video Reviews. I got a tier for $3 a month if you'd like to help. That's great. If not, I understand. No problem. I'll keep doing my thing the best I can. But I do want to say thanks to my patrons for helping me out. Let's see. RBB says, I never try cheap chemicals. I always use Worth contact cleaner for electronic and brake cleaner for others. Okay. I didn't think it was possible, but after that cleaner, it looks even better. Oh, thanks, Robert. Appreciate it. Yeah, the cleaner is nice. It's good. Isopropyl alcohol. Yeah. So that's another one that I thought I would mention, and I do keep this, I have a link for this in the description as well. This is actually 99.9% isopropyl alcohol, and you can use this as well. So if you have a cotton swab and you want to spray it on there, give it a little scrub, there you go, isopropyl alcohol. I actually just replaced this, and I kept it on the bench to show you as an alternative to a contact cleaner. If you don't have that, you can use isopropyl alcohol as well to clean electronics. So that works too. All right, I think that's it for the comments. That's all I see, and that's all for that topic. So let's move forward. The Raw 500. We got some stuff to talk about on the Raw 500. All right, I think if you've been following the topic of the Raw, you know that I've got some special stuff planned for that one. We're waiting for hardware. So I still do not have the hardware. And I can't really talk about the hardware yet, but it's coming. That's all I can tell you. It's on the way. But I did want to let you guys know that I finished the Raw, and it is ready to fly, actually, except for the hardware. So let's take a look. There were a couple of really neat little things on this helicopter I wanted to show you guys. Let me bring this. Oops, that's the wrong one. Let's try this one. There we go. And there we go. Just had to do a little bit of a zoom out, just kind of situate myself. And I'm going to move my radio off the table too, because I don't want the tail to knock that radio loose. So here we go. There's a look at the Raw 500. It is ready to go, except for certain bits of hardware that are inbound. We'll get those taken care of just as soon as I can. I thought I would give you guys a quick little build recap on what happened here, because it's still going to be a little bit of time before I fly it. It's going to be a couple weeks yet. The only issues that I had on this assembly, the first one is you have this anti-torque guide right here on the front, and there's this little slot, and there's this anti-torque pin that rides up and down in that slot, and mine was so snug that the pin actually dragged, so I had to take a file and file that. That was one little thing. Another thing that I wanted to show you is they have this really cool quick release mechanism. So this is the battery tray latch. You give that a little bit of a spin like that, and now you can pull the battery tray out. And the battery tray is a little bit unusual in that it includes, first off, the ability to insert the battery without removing the canopy, which is really nice. That's a very handy feature. And the second thing is they have these little quick connectors. And the way these work is you actually have to cut off whatever battery connector you have. In my case, they were XT90s. You have to cut them off, solder them onto these bullets, and then these bullets are captured by this mechanism, which is screwed to the battery tray. So I thought, you know, what the heck? I have some extra 3300s. By the way, these are 6L 3300s, in case you were wondering. So I had some extra 3300s that I'm not using in any other airframes right now. I thought, well, I'll go ahead and attach them to the battery tray, and I'll use the quick connect system. And when I did that, I soldered my leads on, and then I realized, wait a minute, how the heck am I supposed to charge that? There's my balance connector, which, you know, I have it Velcroed down. That's easy enough for me to deal with. But how are you supposed to plug the mains in? That was the question in my mind. And I thought for sure, obviously, there's a adapter or a pigtail inside the kit. Nope. Now, this isn't like the most expensive helicopter I've ever touched, but it's not exactly the cheapest airframe in my hangar either. And I just have to call SAB out on this. If you're going to do quick connectors, which I think is fine, I like the idea, actually, man, you got to give us a way to charge the damn battery. I mean, I don't even know what they're thinking on that. So here's what I wound up having to do. There were a couple of options. Option number one was to take a male XT90 apart, and that's what I did initially, just to see. And sure enough, they fit in there. So you guys can see the conclusion of that effort, right? You put the protector on the back, which, by the way, it won't fit because it's too wide. So it won't fit. So you put the connector on the back. That's no good. Or you can just leave them bare like this and maybe put some heat shrink on there, maybe zip tie them together. That might be a possibility, or use some heat shrink together. That's a possibility. And then, of course, this side has to go to an XT60 female, right? That's what you would do, is make a pigtail, XT60 female. XT90 bullets fit in there perfectly, but the weird part is the bullet size seems to be skipped. It's like they go from, I forget the numbers, but it's like 3.3, 4, 5, and 6, and I think this is a 4.5 bullet. So you can get them in an XT90, but you can't get them anywhere else that I know of. If you guys know, let me know. Let me know in the comments or in the chat. I'd love to hear it. So that's one option, is to do something janky like that. Now, again, you know, I didn't do any work on this, but I could solder that lead on, you know, put a proper wire on, solder it on, put some heat shrink on, maybe heat shrink them together and make a nice little pigtail. That's a possibility. That's one possibility. Another possibility is that in the kit, they do give you the other side, the male version of this quick connect for the ESC. And the idea, of course, is that you solder your ESC wires to that quick connector. That quick connector gets mounted to the airframe. And then when you slide the battery in like this in the back, it runs up to that quick connector and just attaches itself, right? Oh, and you put the latch down too, by the way. So once you do that, then it latches into place, the quick connector's in, and you're done. That's a nice feature, and I wanted to try it out, but the problem is they gave you only one of the ESC side. So what I wound up doing is I went back to HeliDirect, and I bought a couple of more ESC connectors that I will make pigtails out of, right? That's what I'm going to do. That's my solution. But I just have to call BS on this one. It's kind of like, for such a nice helicopter, I think it's very weak that they didn't include the battery connector for charging the battery outside the airframe. I just think that was a pretty bad decision on the part of SAB to drop that in our laps. You know, it's not that I can't come up with a solution. I can, but come on, for the money, let's include what people need minimally. If you're going to use a mechanism like that, let's include what people need in order to charge their batteries, right? I think that's just my point of view on it. Okay, on the other hand, one other quick little feature I did want to mention. I mentioned this during the first look. There's the indicator and tensioner, and the way this works is really cool. You put the tail boom on the back, and obviously you run your belt. You got to run the belt through the pulley right here. So you run that around the pulley, and then they have a tool, if you want to use the tool, that clamps around the boom right here, and you pull on the boom until this indicator reads 0. And when that reads 0, on the bottom, there are a couple of clamps. There's one right there. There's a clamping screw, and another one over here on this side. There's another clamping screw, and you just clamp the tail down. So I thought that was actually a really cool feature, because this little device serves not only as a belt tensioner, but it's also an indicator to let you know that your tail belt tension is correct. And the idea, of course, is for that little indicator right there to read 0. You want that to read 0. And that changes its reading based on the amount of tension you put on that boom when you tighten it down. So a very cool little feature to help make sure things are set up correctly. But anyway, there it is. There's the RAW 500 ready to go. I'm just waiting on inbound hardware. And as soon as it gets here, we will get the rest of this series finished off. I know a lot of people have been asking about the configuration, because I told you we're going to do a radio configuration. We're going to do the fly barless configuration. We're going to do some flight video stuff. We're going to do this one top to bottom. So I just wanted you to be aware that I've done as much as I can until the extra hardware comes in. Cool? Cool. All right. There's the RAW 500. Absolutely beautiful helicopter. I'm kind of glad I waited, because I saw the RAW 580. I saw the RAW 420. I've wanted a RAW for a long time. I'm kind of glad I waited. This is a really nice size. I think this is a really good size helicopter. I think I'll enjoy it. It's compact enough to take with you. It's not really small. It's not really big. It's like just right. You know, it's just in the middle. And of course, the S-line blades up top, they come with the kit. Very nice helicopter. And very easy to put together. SAB, aside from my little gripes, SAB stuff is just such an absolute pleasure to put together. Okay, there we go. That's out of the way. Now we're going to get back to the desktop, and we'll see what's next. I'm going to check comments before I move on. And just because I know Robert's out there, I want to make sure we get something there for Robert to look at. There we go. There's Precious. All right. I didn't think it was possible. Okay, got that. Isopropyl alcohol and contact cleaner essential for work. Yep. Okay, got that. Not a heli guy, so that's pretty sweet looking helicopter. Yeah, it is a nice looking helicopter, man. I love it. I love that canopy. I don't know what it is. And the RAWs are very popular at helicopter events. The RAW 700, you see those all over. Awesome color scheme. Oh, Wiggle Fingers RC, man, that was one of the big gripes. He says, awesome color scheme, better than recent colors. Amen to that. I'll tell you, when I first saw the raw 580, I just almost wanted to cry because I really wanted a raw. And when I heard about the raw 580, I thought, oh yes, that's perfect. I love a raw 580. And then those colors, oh, I didn't buy it because of those colors. I think they just completely missed the boat on that. I don't know what they were thinking. So Robert says, I think they would just have had an adapter just to plug in a regular battery. Yeah, that's another idea, Robert. I think XLP does that. That's another good one. Why not just have a dual-sided adapter so you can plug an XT90 from your battery into the backside and then have their proprietary adapter on the front side? I mean, that would have been, to me, that would have been perfect. But yeah, I agree. That's another one I think they could have done. Yeah, absolutely. You think they would have an adapter just to plug in a regular? Okay, got that. Why not put the adapter from the proprietary plug into an XT60 female and just plug in a regular battery into that? Why not put the adapter from the proprietary? Because of space, Robert, the tray, you don't want to push the battery too far back. And if you start crowding stuff in, I'm not saying it couldn't be done. I'm just saying I did it the way the book recommended it, but I think you might run into a space constraint if you started doing that. Just a thought. I'm sure there are lots of other solutions possible, but I just did it kind of the way the book showed, and that's the way they expect people to do it. And therefore you now have my gripe as a result. RBB says, nice raw. I only have a line helis. What fly barless controller are you using? You're just going to have to wait on that one. That one's coming. That's part of the equipment we're waiting for. I really agree. The charge cable needs to be in the kit. It does. It does. And it's a shame that they didn't do it. I got to be honest with you. It's a shame. To me, it's a miss. Like, they're not super expensive, but these aren't cheap either. So come on. You're talking about, what, a few dollars worth of parts? I mean, it's just, come on. Include the damn adapter, man. I love the Quick Connect. I'm not bashing the Quick Connect. I like the Quick Connect. I think it's a great idea. It's going to be very convenient to fly, but damn, include the charge cable so we can plug it in, right? I mean, just, it's ridiculous that they didn't include it. Just ridiculous. Okay. That's enough of that. RadioMaster Bandit. I want to cover the Bandit. Oh, here we go. I'm not going to do a full review. I just wanted to show you guys that I have it, and I am going to be doing videos on it. The problem is so far that I have to put an airframe together to use it. And I haven't had anyone to film for a little bit. So I did get the Bandit system. I did want to give you guys a quick look at it. This is the Bandit Micro. So in case you're wondering, if you don't know what this is Express LRS in a 900 megahertz frequency. And when RadioMaster told me about it, I was actually very surprised to hear that they were going into the 900 megahertz Express LRS space. As you can see by that antenna, that's a big 900 megahertz antenna. One thing that I did notice on this is the Micro, they followed the same form factors they did with the Ranger, where they had the Ranger Micro, and Ranger Nano. They now have the Bandit Micro, and the Bandit Nano. I will show you the other two in just a minute. But take note, they added the OLED screen. They've got the USB-C connector for flashes. They've got the XT30 for external power if you want it, and a little jog dial, plus some lights and fans. So I'm just going to stick that in the back of Precious here. We'll turn it on, give you a look at the menu system. I'll show you a little bit of what's going on around the front in the Lua script for the setup as well. So let's just zoom in a little bit so you can see. Okay, so on the back, there's the OLED screen. And again, you can kind of, hey, this is actually hitting my screen. It's like my screen is sketching out with this aimed at that. Interesting. Anyway, there's a look at the OLED screen. Again, one of the reasons I like the Micro so much is because there were no buttons on the back, and there was no way to interfere with what was going on. So, you may like that, you may not. I'm not sure. But I can tell you right now, this radio is definitely messing with my screen, man. That was interesting. All right, let's, I'm going to go into the radio settings real quick. And what am I missing here? There we go. Express LRS. And I'm going to turn the power down. I have it set on 1000 dynamic, and I think it feels like it's putting that out. So I'm going to turn that down to 100. There we go. My screen was freaking out when I turned that on. That's cool. Okay, so anyway, here's a look at the Express LRS Lua script for the Bandit. Packet rate, this is the one that a lot of people want to know. 100 hertz, 200 hertz, and that's it. You go up to 200 hertz. and then back down to 100, and then we can go back down as low as 50 hertz, and then we're in D50, and that's it. So D50, 25, 50, 100, 200. So fine, that's that. Regarding switch mode, we still have 16 divided by 2. So keep in mind, if you use 16 divided by 2, this is no longer 100 hertz. That's now 50 hertz. So keep that in mind, but you do get 16 proportional channels. And then as you saw for power, we have the ability to go up to 1000. I don't want to do that because it's making my screen freak out. And then a dynamic power, just like everything else. And you can set your fan threshold right here. So that's all very familiar. The bind options are there. Wi-Fi connectivity is there. You can turn on the Wi-Fi, enable Wi-Fi for the transmitter, the receiver, the backpack. So everything that we see on the menu system is the same. The only thing that's really different is you have a limited packet rate, not as much going on there. And it's 900 hertz instead of 2.4 gigahertz. I don't have a receiver bound to it right now, so I can't go in and show you the other devices, right? If you're familiar with Express LRS, you can normally come down here and see other devices. That will still work. So that's it. That's the Bandit. That's the micro version. And I'm going to set this aside for now and turn that off so it stops messing with all my electronics. And I thought I'd give you guys a look at some of the other gear that they're selling in this lineup just really quickly. Again, there will be a production video on this. I'm showing this to you guys on the PilotJam just to give you a first look and let you get a look at it and see it. I know there are already YouTube videos out there on it, so that's fine. But we're going to get under the cover. So here's the this is the Bandit. This is the full size version, much like the Ranger. Same, the full size version. There's the adapter box to plug it in the back of the radio. I was just using, that's the JR adapter. You also have a nano adapter. So if you have a radio that uses nano on the back, you've got that. And then inside, really quickly, they've got this little clear plastic cover. I'm not sure if their intention is to leave that on. I guess you could, maybe to protect the corners, but if you don't want to leave it on, it definitely does come off as well. So I'll just pop that off. There we go. So very similar to the Ranger. I mean, the case is probably the same. It's just a slightly different color. This one's metal. It's got the nice chamfered edges right there. The same OLED screen, the antenna up top. And then, of course, like I said, you have to screw a box on the back so you can stick it in your radio. So that is the Bandit. This one is 900 megahertz as well. That's the full size. And then they also give you a couple little cables inside. They look like binding or S-bus out. I'm not sure. Oh, CRSF. Oh, that was another. Oh, yeah. Let's look at the bottom. You've got CRSF out, RT, XT30 connector, and USB. RT, not sure. I'm going to have to read about that. But I also heard, one of the things I heard is that the micro, that's this one, this has the ability to be utilized as a receiver. And the cool part about this, if you're into range, is that this can be decased and used as a receiver, and that means you can get up to 1,000 milliwatts of telemetry coming back. And also take note on the Nano, they also have the screen. So the screen, the joystick, the XT30, and the USB-C, and that one's designed to go right into a Nano slot on a radio. So there's a look at the Bandit Nano. That's the Bandit Nano. And of course, it comes with the T antenna. So I will be trying this gear out. Here are a couple of receivers that RadioMaster sent. They've got a BR1 and a BR3. I haven't gotten into the review material yet, so I can't tell you too much about it. This looks like single antenna, dual antenna. And this one obviously has the T's. So all Express LRS. If you're into range, or if you think you need 900 megahertz for whatever reason, whatever your use case is, there's now an option in the RadioMaster Express LRS lineup to achieve just that. So be on the lookout. I do not fly long range FPV anymore, at least not that I'm willing to admit, and certainly not that I'm willing to put on camera because of the laws being what they are these days. But anyway, that doesn't mean I can't get out and do some testing, right? And get these radios out and maybe, fly around with them, see how they handle, check the link quality, that kind of thing. I thought we'd spend just a quick minute talking about, oh, by the way, a couple more antennas. There's another T antenna, and they also include a Moxon antenna. This is more directional. It's a narrower beam, so longer range. But keep in mind, when you crunch that beam and make it narrow, now you got to start being more directional. These T antennas are meant to be omnidirectional. This is kind of omnidirectional, but it's got a polar pattern that's compressed and aimed in one direction. So while it will go behind you slightly, this is more like a sphere, right? Like a beach ball, you know, all around you. This one is much more directional, and the beam pattern on the back, if you were standing here, this might be the beam pattern going forward, but behind you, it gets real small. So just keep that in mind on these directional antennas. You need a Moxon if you're going very long distance. If you're just going to be flying local, the T antenna is just fine. So anyway, as I said, I'm not doing long distance these days. So, you know, I'm not going to come out and do any range tests. That's just not, you're going to have to find that somewhere else on YouTube. I'm not going to do that kind of stuff, but I will try the equipment out and see how it works. So if you have a use case for 2.4, that's great. If you have a use case for 900, that's fine. Now you've got an option to do that. So let's talk a little bit about the RF tech and why this matters. It used to be pre-Express LRS, pre-LoRa. The conventional wisdom was always that you used a longer wavelength to suffer less penetration loss. That's really the way you look at it. And then there's also this argument about 2.4 being in the similar resonant frequency as water. So if you have a humid day or moisture in the air, that can attenuate a 2.4 gigahertz signal. I've never done any testing on that, so I don't have religion on it. It's not like I'm going to come in and say, I know for a fact that happens, because I don't. I've heard it. I've read about it. So it's a thing. It's a thing that some people talk about. And then another one is this concept of multipliers. So say, for example, you have a 1.2 gigahertz video subsystem. You really don't want to fly a 2.4 gigahertz radio control link, because 2.4 gigahertz control is a multiplier of 1.2 gigahertz video. That's why for people who fly long range, they tend to use things like 1.3 gigahertz video, because the multiplier on that is 2.6, which is far enough away from 2.4 to not cause control issues. So you'll hear things like penetration. You'll hear things like half-life. You'll hear things like water, harmonic frequencies, you know, mixing and matching your frequency spectrums. Here's what I think about the 900 megahertz space. I think on 2.4 gigahertz, they've already shown, and the Express LRS leaderboard has already shown us. In fact, I'm going to Google it because I don't want to misrepresent it. I'm going to Google it just a second. Let me just bring up a browser. But they're insane. The numbers they're posting are insane. ELRS leaderboard. Let's just take a look. We'll take a look. Okay, not ERS, ELRS. ELRS leaderboard. There we go. Now I'm going to bring up the workspace, and we're going to hide the camera. We're going to hide the second camera. There we go. So here's the leaderboard. And if you've never seen this before, to me, it's a really important concept, right? And this is why I don't ever think about anything but 2.4 gigahertz anymore. Look at this. This is the Express LRS. You can just Google Express LRS leaderboard. Okay. That's all I did. ELRS leaderboard. It's the very first link. It's right here. First link. And when you scroll down, the 2.4 gigahertz rankings. Now, I want you to look at the rules. The rules are very simple. Anyone can add an entry. You have to include your max distance from home. You have to specify your frequency rate to 900 or 2.4 gigahertz, your packet rate, your power level. If you fail safed, your name, and a link to your DVR on YouTube. See, this is what we call video evidence. This isn't, barroom banter. This is video evidence. You have to provide a link on your to your DVR showing the result. But look at the results they're getting. This is 2.4 gigahertz rankings. 31.56 kilometers on 2.4 gigahertz at a packet rate of 50 hertz with a TX power of 50 on a wing. No fail safe. And there's a link to the video if you want to watch it. So 40 kilometers at 50 hertz, 25 milliwatts. Look at that. 40 kilometers, 25 milliwatts. Now, let's put this in perspective. These receivers and transmitters, depending on which one you use, they can go anywhere from 250 for an internal Express LRS 2.4, like on my RadioMaster, all the way up to 1,000 milliwatts. But look what they're doing. They're doing this on 25 milliwatts. So this is okay. Now that we've established that this is just ludicrous distance, right? I hope everyone will say, "Oh yeah, that's respectable," right? That's highly respectable. Look what they're doing. There's 100 milliwatts plus. Look at this, 100 kilometers at 2,000 milliwatts. That's 2 watts, right? And you know the RadioMaster will do that, right? The 2.4 gigahertz Ranger will, Ranger will do that. 2 watts, 100 freaking kilometers. I mean, this is 2.4 gigahertz. This whole Express LRS LoRa experiment at 2.4 gigahertz blew up everything I thought I knew about RF when I started seeing what they're doing and the accomplishments they're getting. Look at this one, 43 kilometers, 150 hertz packet rate, 250 milliwatts. That's nothing. That's nothing. That's a quarter of the power of a standard Ranger Micro, which can go up to 1 watt. This is a quarter of that power. All right, let's go down to the 900 hertz rankings. 40 kilometers, 25 kilometers, 13 kilometers. Those numbers look similar, don't they? This is a 10 milliwatts, 25 milliwatts, 50 hertz packet rates. They look similar to what we're seeing up here in 2.4. So this is why I was a little surprised that RadioMaster went into this space. And I was really, it has to be something to do with their use case. It cannot be about distance, because after I get through the distance table, we're going to talk about the so what in all of this. So here's 100 milliwatts, 50 kilometers, 30 kilometers, 13 kilometers. Guys, if you're flying line of sight with Express LRS, the last thing you need to worry about is link integrity. That's the bottom line. Now let's cover the so what. I want to spend a minute on the so what, because I used to do this stuff. I used to fly long distance like this. I want to tell you guys for a fact right now. If you're flying at those kinds of ranges, you have a completely different set of problems other than your radio control link, okay? And it has to do with your video. So you have to create a video system that can use directional antennas and then keep that antenna aimed at the aircraft when you're that far away. So what I'm trying to suggest here is that these technologies that are available, whether you're at 900 megahertz or 2.4, you have sufficient range on these control links to fly anywhere, any line of sight distance you can imagine, right? You can do it with 2.4 without any fear whatsoever. If you start getting into that space where this 900 megahertz directional stuff starts to matter to you, you're probably not listening to me at this point anyway, because you shouldn't. You should be doing your own research and coming up with your own solution, because now you're talking serious business. I can tell you, when I first got into this, I would do my reading, do my research, and I did a lot of practice. I didn't take anybody's single word for it, and nor should you. So if you're flying those kinds of distances, video now becomes your problem. It's not the control link. So anyway, that said, I'm going to do, I'll do some testing with the gear. I'm not going to do range testing with it. And if I do range testing, you won't see a video for it. So I'll leave it at that. But there you go. RadioMaster Bandit. That's new tech, man, on the way out. And it's not really that new, to be honest. I mean, the form factor is new, but 900 megahertz, that was actually my first experience with Express LRS was 900 megahertz. And when I started seeing what they were doing with 2.4, I quickly switched over. And the main reason I switched over was because of the convenience of it. The 2.4 gigahertz antennas are a lot smaller than those. Look at that. That's the width of the 900 megahertz right there. That's the antenna, right? So the 2.4s are more convenient. But, whatever, man, whatever floats your boat. You might have a frequency use case that matters to you. And if, you're thinking about multiples on 1.2 gigahertz video, for example, or if you got some other harmonic concern, or if you're flying in an area where a 2.4 has a nasty noise floor, or if there are cell towers or microwave towers are using frequencies that you need to do long range, those are all use cases for 900. And I get that. But, you really have to be thinking long distance to be able to get into that kind of stuff. So that's that. I just wanted to touch on that for just a little bit so we could talk about it and give you guys a little, do a little level setting on what you should expect. All right, let's see. Rob Burrows says, we survived. Just got back from a couple quick flights to check it out. Uh-oh. What did he check out? The Raw? Did he fly the Raw already? I'll be amazed if he did. Let's see. Nissan Udin says, recently bought a Hoda D6 Pro for 60 on Alley for Black Friday. Do they have any issues at all? I've been burned so many on shoddy chargers in the past. So far, I don't have a D6 Pro, but my Hoda S6 has been pretty good. I had one little software glitch that a reboot solved. So there was a software bug. I expect they might be able to fix it with firmware, but so far mine has been pretty good. Let's see. They're doing business like Apple. Okay. Yeah. You're talking about the tray, right? Attempting to learn this radio as well. Lots of videos on the radio, man. Make sure you spend a lot of time looking at my EdgeTX playlist, my TX16S playlist. Got a lot of content out there. Look at that radio. It's messing with my screen too, John. You got to get rid of that thing. Its time has come. It must go. You know, Robert, I think at some point, this might be like an auction thing for a charity or something because, you know, Precious has been... What? I got so much going on. I can't even straighten it out here. I gotta get Robert taken care of. There we go, Robert. Precious right front and center for you. There we go. There's Precious. Yeah, I think when the time comes for me to unload this radio, it'll probably be some kind of auction or something to benefit charity. I don't know. We'll see. We'll do something. Let's see. Zoom out a little bit. RT is a UART. It's a UART. Oh, okay. Thanks for the clarification, Robert. Chris Martin, did you ever do a video on how to calibrate the battery checker? Yeah, I've done. Yes. The battery checker calibration, it's right in the system menu. On all this ISDT stuff, you have to, here, let's just bring it up. Rather than talk, what are we here for if we can't just show, right? So let's see. If you bring this up and press the, why isn't it coming on? Let's go. Oh, because I'm not plugged into the battery. I was plugged into the extension. There we go. Okay, so if you press the button and then go up to system information right there, and you long press 3 times, you go click, let go. Nope, that was wrong. I know it's in here. There we go. And then you do it 3 times. 1, 2, 3. There. Hey, come on now. 1, 2, 3. There it is. Calibration right there. And then you have to put in that ridiculous key. This is one of the things that drives me nuts about equipment. I hate putting in these stupid keys. But when you put in that key, then you're brought into the calibration menu and you can calibrate. So that's how you do it on the ISDT stuff. But yes, I have done videos on how to calibrate these, Chris. But that's really all you really need to know. Once you've got that part figured out, you can go ahead and go into the calibration menu and adjust until your heart's content. All right, let's see. What else is next? Mitch says, joining late tonight. Well, better late than never, Mitch. Glad to have you. Robert says, I don't know about the battery checker, but I know he did it on the charger. Yeah, and they're the same. It's the same process, really. Same procedure. Tom Evans joining late, too. 5 demerits, Tom. Let's see. I can testify John created a sweet long-range video system. Yep, Robert actually is in possession of that system at this point. So, yes, it was very cool. I've seen it firsthand. I believe the Bandit Micro and Nano will work as repeaters at those distances. Yeah, that's another option too. You know, if you need to set up a repeater, you can, that's a possibility as well. Interesting use case for it. But again, you really have to be dedicated to long range to be able to, get into that aspect of the hobby. I do actually miss it, and it was a lot of fun. I was starting to really push my own envelope when I did that kind of flying, but boy, did they just clamped down. They took all the fun out of it. So whatever I do long range is between me and my plane these days. I don't post that kind of stuff anymore. I'm not even sure I do that kind of stuff anymore. All right, we'll move on. Let's go back to the desktop, and that was the RadioMaster Bandit. We covered that. Okay, next up is QA. So we can go back to the work. No, we'll go back to the Blackboard now, and there we go. We have QA. So let me get this resized just a little bit. There we go. All right, Q&A. If you guys haven't seen this before, I try and find questions that seem to me like they might be interesting to more than one person. So I go through the questions that I get during the week, and I take screen grabs, and I like to try and cover those on the PilotJam. So question number 1 came from Packer34. He says, thank you for explaining things so clearly. Upgraded to the latest version. One question, my aileron is now my rudder, my aileron. Did I download something wrong, or can this be switched? I don't know if anyone knows the answer to this. I'll check the comments and see if anyone pops in, but I actually see this question quite a bit. It's one of those things where there's an option in the system menu all the way at the bottom. And while you guys are thinking about it, I'm going to go ahead and bring it up on the radio and give you guys a chance to see if someone wants to pop the answer in. But it's just one of those things that it goes to the long-term flexibility of this radio system. And not seeing any comments, I will switch over to the camera and give you guys a look. So here we go. Over at camera. Nope. See, I rearranged everything in order to do this microscope, and that caused me problems. So here we go. Normally, the way you get to this, by the way, from the main screen is you press System, and then you go to the gear icon, and then you scroll all the way down to the bottom, and there's a mode option right there. Left is rudder and throttle, and then that's mode 2. And if you do mode 1, then left is your rudder and elevator. So a lot of times when you flash the radio, especially if you're coming from OpenTX, you can see that mode changes. So if you ever see that type of question where somebody says, hey, my stick switched sides on me, that's normally the answer. Is you got to go into the mode on the radio and switch over to whatever mode you are supposed to be running. That will normally solve that problem. All right, question number 2 from Bill. Bill just got around to looking at this, John. Good stocking stuffers, no doubt, and that Kester solder. Man, I don't think I have a link in the description for this stuff, but Kester solder, I love this. Sold her. The Brits. Those of you from the Empire get me every time when I say it the wrong way. But there it is, man. This Kester is the best stuff I've ever. It's even better than the Radio Shack stuff. So Kester, get the Kester solder. And if you guys didn't see it yet, for Christmas, make sure you get your wives to watch the video, the Amazon video, and go get yourself some goodies. There's some really cool stuff in that video. So Bill, thank you. Appreciate you. And he's right, man. The Kester solder goes down like butter. It is very good stuff. I love Kester. It's good stuff. After I was unable to procure any more Radio Shack solder, I was really devastated until I found this Kester. It's good stuff. All right, next up, JSpin FPV says, has this been used on any gas planes with success? Now, the reason I brought this one up is because you guys know, I don't know jack about IC airplane setups. Like obviously I know what they are. When I first flew, I had an IC setup. So, obviously that much is true. But when it comes to modern equipment, modern IC engines, that whole ecosystem, who's making the good engines these days, I have no idea. And this is one of these questions that I see fairly regularly. He's referring to the Express LRS receivers with the gyro. Has this been used on a gas plane with success, or is it too much gyro noise for stabilization to work effectively? So I don't know the answer to this question because I don't fly internal combustion. I'm kind of wondering if you guys do. So those of you who fly internal combustion setups, I would love to hear in the comments, why is it that the nitro and gas guys think that these receivers and gyros are questionable for IC setups? I'm legitimately interested in understanding the question because I don't get it. I see this question like, why wouldn't it be? What's the problem? Obviously, vibration comes to mind. I get that. I've talked to Rob about this in the past, and Rob's like, yeah, vibrations on sketchy receiver soldering, that can be, a concern. I get that part, but is there some other reason that people think that these receivers would not be effective in an IC setup? I really don't know the answer. So I'm curious to hear what you guys have to say. And I would really like to see your comments in the comments after the video posts, not just in chat. I'm very curious to see about that. All right, next up is Chris Crew Rev 1.8. All righty, I did everything I could, and so far I thought it was okay. For some reason, my radio is dropping signal with my Beta FPV 1 watt module when I engage my throttle. Any thoughts? Man, I got to be honest with you. When I saw this question, I was like, what? What the heck? That's a really odd problem. I said, I really don't know what to say about this one. Do you have any other modules with which to test? This is demonstrating to you guys hours of misspent youth diagnosing technical problems, because he came back and he said, brother, you're an absolute lifesaver. It turns out there may be an issue with my original Beta FPV 1 watt module, as I updated my original Happy model, and that the one that I first got, and it works perfectly. Thanks for the help. Even a blind squirrel gets a nut every now and then, right? But you know, this is just hours of misspent youth playing with radio gear. What else can I say? I was glad to be able to help Chris Q, but I'll let you guys in on a little secret. When it comes to troubleshooting problems, one of the very first things I try and do is eliminate variables, right? Try and get the variability down as low as you can to begin with. And that's why I said, okay, well, he specifically called out a Beta FPV 1 watt module. That's not part of the radio system. So what happens if we get rid of that and just try something else? Will that cure the issue? And sure enough, he came back and said, yeah, that helped out quite a bit. So that's one of my tricks. Try and eliminate variability when you can. So I'm glad we were able to get Chris up and running. Number 5, is this necessary equipment for RC flight in general or just for long range? I got to be honest with you guys. I thought about this question a lot, and I was actually talking with a good friend of mine. He actually just hopped on Discord. If you guys see Richard on Discord, he joined tonight. Richard's a good friend of mine from Arizona. He joined our Discord. Make sure you say hello. Blow up his inbox for him. Tell him hello. Good friend of mine. And he was asking me questions about Express LRS. And the thing about it is it stands for long range system, right? I think that's what the acronym stands for. And it's a little bit of an unfortunate naming convention because I think a lot of people look at this and say, hey, wait a minute. Is this radio system just for those goofball FPV guys who like to fly out over, from island to island? No, it's not. I use Express LRS in line of sight on every airplane I have right now. So it's a little unfortunate that the concept of long range system is tied to this protocol because it is very good for line of sight flying. And as we saw just a little while ago, very good for long distance flying. It does both, and it's quite successful at both. So I like Express LRS for line of sight. That's what I have in every fixed wing model I've got. All of them have the same technology, and I love it. So no, it's not just for long range. It is also perfectly well suited for line of sight flying. All right. G. Poi Fernandez says, that's very nice information. I have a question. Here's the calibration question. My new 4S LiPo, even though I charge it 16.8, when I check it at the cell meter, every cell is just 4.1. He doesn't say 4.15 or 4.18 or 4.19. He just says 4.1, which could be 4.10. But it did. Plus, it didn't come exact at 4.2 volts. It's new. I've used it and charged Y. So this is the reason we calibrate, right? If you guys are seeing these types of issues, calibrate your stuff. And don't just calibrate your cell checker, calibrate your charger as well. This is why I buy the gear that I buy and test it. It's so I can see what's going on. And my straight up answer is calibrate your stuff. You gotta calibrate. You cannot trust the stuff right out of the box. And here's another consideration, just for the analytical minds out there. If you have a margin of error that's concerning to you, then resolve it, right? Don't start charging your batteries with gear that you're questioning, right? So in other words, if your meter is telling you you're at 4.2, but you suspect it could be 4.3, then do something about it. But if you can trust your gear, and that's one of the reasons I bought the Fluke 87.5. That's one of the reasons I got it, because it does have a pretty stellar reputation out there. So if you can trust your gear, then get good gear and do the calibration work for both, right? Do the calibration on your charger, do it on your battery checker, hell, do it on your radio, calibrate. Now, there are people out there who will say things like, yeah, these are just toys. They're not, scientifically accurate. It's not measuring up to government ISO standard. I don't care. I don't freaking care about that. What I care about is that you make your margin of error as small as possible. And I would say with a good quality meter like the Fluke, and because we've bounced the Fluke results against the VenLab, I would say either one of these would be perfectly sufficient for calibrating gear in the hobby. I think you'd be fine. But the answer is calibrate. You got to calibrate your stuff. I can't stress that enough. And I would tell you guys, calibrate your ESCs too. I'm always amazed when I hear at the field, I ask people, did you calibrate your ESC? They say things like, how come when I run my stick up Here, let me show you on video. It's one of my favorite questions. I tried to not roll my eyes because I realize that not everybody, we're not all in the same place, right? We all come at it from a different place. But I'll have people say, how come when I activate my throttle lock or unlock my throttle and then I start moving my throttle stick up, I don't get throttle until I'm here. The very first thing out of my mouth, did you calibrate your ESC? Yes or no? If they say yes, then I say, did you calibrate your radio? They say no. Well, then calibrate your radio and then recalibrate your ESC. So calibration is one of those things that you just simply can't ignore in the hobby. You got to calibrate your stuff. You got to calibrate your radio. That's why when you do a radio setup on EdgeTX, it's the very first question they ask you. It's because in the radio YAML file, they don't have the calibration set. They're telling you calibrate the radio. So because they're all little tiny differences in the system and you got to calibrate. So calibrate your radio, calibrate your sticks, and then when you're done, calibrate your ESC, and before you go fly, calibrate your chargers and calibrate your cell checkers. And you'll have a much happier outcome if you do. Trust me, it's worth the effort. It's just worth it. And it may seem a little annoying. I get it. It may seem annoying that you have to go through all that stuff, but you spend a little bit of time and you have a much happier outcome. Things will last longer. They'll perform correctly. You'll be much happier. So calibrate your stuff. All right, Johan Kerblad 339. Johan Kerblad 339. What is that? Dutch? Norwegian? I don't know. Maybe German. Many thanks for all the great presentations and instruction. You seem to be an expert level. Thank you. Thank you very much. And I have a problem with my OLED display experiment. My LCD cable is cut off by mistake. I've made a cable for my 2.4 inch OLED, and I found software in the EdgeTX group because my cable LCD broke. I cannot program or flash firmware. So my answer to Johan was, if you lost your screen due to a cable issue, and oddly enough, the reason I posted this question, this is not the first time this week I ran into this problem. I had another radio with a bad video cable. I don't know what happened, but I pulled the cable out myself and looked, bad cable. So the contacts were getting mangled inside somehow. Not sure how. Anyway, what I recommended was you can flash without the screen on buddy.edgetx.org. So you can go into DFU mode, right? You plug it in on the top, and you can flash right there on Buddy. So if you lose your display for some reason, you can do that. In terms of programming the radio, you can also program it by using Companion. So if you lose your display for whatever reason, there are tools out there that will let you do some things, but at the end of the day, the screen is there for a reason. I would make sure you do what you have to do to get it repaired. But make sure you check out buddy.edgetx.org because you can flash directly from that website onto the radio without having to mess around with visuals on the screen. This was an interesting question from Leroy Helander. He said, my instructor taught me to fly the downwind, bleeding speed and altitude, then turn directly to myself, still bleeding speed and altitude until arriving at the far edge of the runway, then use ailerons to turn left onto the runway. He said this makes it easier to judge your position and altitude. I'm just getting into flying and I'm curious about your opinion. Okay. What I should have opened with was listen to your instructor. That's what I should have started with. So the first answer is listen to your instructor because there's a reason he's an instructor. He's willing to do the work. He can, hopefully he can fly. Hopefully he'll get you past the point where you are. And that's the job of every instructor, is to get you to the point where they are, right? So you're competent in the air. But in the end analysis, when it comes to flying, if you consider the concept of scale, we don't use downwind to bleed altitude. Downwind is actually held at a constant altitude. We start bleeding altitude when we turn base and final. And we use downwind to enter the pattern and get our speed set correctly. So we get downwind really is a leg where you start your pattern maneuvers. Okay. So for me personally, at the end of all of this, what really matters is that you find an option that works for you, because at the end of the day, you're not flying an airliner with 200 souls on board that requires a very precise outcome, right? The main objective with radio controls, don't endanger anybody. Don't aim your plane at human beings and try to land without creating any spare parts. That's the main objective. And if you do that, you win. So, but with that said, I personally, when it comes to being on base and final, I do not like using ailerons to adjust. I like using the rudder to make adjustments, and I use the ailerons to try and keep my wings level. And the reason for that, especially on final, is that I don't want any stall conditions created, right? You don't want to start dipping wings and changing the angle of attack on one wing over another, because when you're going slow, the airframe is kind of dirty, and that's a surefire way to create a stall. So for me, I like to try and keep the wings flat and level. I use elevator to arrest my speed. I use my throttle to arrest my rate of descent, and I use the rudder to keep myself in line. I use the ailerons to keep my wings flat. So that's really my method of landing on the runway. I explained the rest of what I think in the video, and then I said at the end, the brutal truth is everybody in this hobby's got an opinion. What really matters at the end, it's your money, it's your hobby. Do what works for you, but let's make sure we're staying safe. And that's why I don't like comments like, I aim the plane at my face and fly directly at myself. I don't really care for that. I don't like aiming props at my face or my body. Just not a practice I choose to engage in. Okay, that's it for that one. Number 9, Joe Stubbs. He says, John, is that correct? You've done a brilliant presentation of teaching a 79-year-old. Hopefully my little gray cells had a new lease on life. Well done, fella. But on completion of the exercise, after loading firmware for EdgeTX Providence 2.9.2, my TX version stays the same, 2.8.5. What's going on? So obviously the EdgeTX developers have collectively lost their minds and screwed up the version string on the firmware, right? No. The answer is he flashed the wrong binary. That's the answer. You may think you did it right, but if you flash a firmware and you see it flash, you see it writing across the screen, it's flashed, and then you go back into the radio and you look at the system information and the version says it's something different, I got news for you, brother. You flashed the wrong binary. That's it. So go back and try again. It is very easy to do, because if you maintain a firmware folder with all those different binaries, it'd be really simple to click on one and, maybe have the scroll wheel jump up one when you didn't see it, and you wind up flashing the wrong one. Also keep in mind, I'll bring this up real quick so you guys can see it. Keep in mind that these days on the radio, they do provide a look at the version information before you flash. So if we go into write firmware and I come down, see what I mean? It'd be really easy to think you grab this one, and when you press down, you actually grab that one. It's easy to do. But here's what they have in store for you. If you press on this, notice it reads the version string for you right here, 2.9.0 RC1. Okay, that's that firmware. So if that's not the one you want, you can back out and find another one. Look how close these are. That's 7.4E, 7E2. That'd be easy to mistake, right? And EdgeTX developers, how about a version string right here? Maybe fewer of these numbers and more version numbers. Wouldn't that be good? You can see up here, I wrote EdgeTX 2.8.1. That's what I named my file. I don't really care about that character code. That doesn't mean anything. I'm the end user. I don't care about that. I know the developers care about it, and I know why they care about it, but I'm the end user. I don't care about that. What I do care about is making sure I got the right version. So maybe that's something that could be done. It's not like we don't have space. Look at the multi-module firmware. Look how long that is. Surely we could add a version string right here on the ends, right? For EdgeTX. How about it, guys? How about it? Round of applause. Yes. Anybody? Bueller? Is this thing on? Come on, developers. Come on, help the end users out. We're not all that bright. Okay. So anyway, there's the binary. Click on that. And when you do, you'll see, look, 2.10.0 nightly. So check that before you actually hit the flash button. Okay. That's what I'm saying. Make sure you check that out. It's available. It's been around for a while like that now. So make sure you check that out. Okay. Let's see what's next. Mike G, he says, excited for the setup videos talking about the raw. I've been adapting your EdgeTX model setup videos to helicopters. It'd be nice to see you do one for the heli. Amen, Mike. It's coming, man. Hang tight. It's coming. It's going to happen. We're going to go into detail on the helicopter setup, no doubt about it. And that brings us back to question number 1, which means we are done with the Q&A. I'm going to go back and check questions, and then we're going to wrap the video up. Let's see. Good luck with that auction. I wish you all the best, says Robert. I know, Robert, even if you buy it, I'm not selling it to you, man, because I know what you'll do. You'll put it in a blender, and then you'll make me watch. So I'm just not going to do that. I just so you know, I'm going to make sure I know whose hands this radio goes into if that happens. All right. Good luck with that auction. Okay, it's your orientation, Terra or Rita. Yeah, that's another one too. But the Terra Rita option in there, that's only for the initial setup. That's not actually for your controls. So like if you come down here and set up default channel order, let's do the big video screen so we can see it. If you go in here and set change it from AETR to something else, that only impacts the initial channel order in the mix layout, but the mode remains the mode. So just keep that in mind. That's just channel order. So that impacts the number of which number the pins are aligned on in the mixer. So for example, I always use AETR. So where did that go? AETR right there. So that's aileron, elevator, throttle, rudder. That means aileron is 1, elevator is 2, throttle is 3, and rudder is 4. And that's the way it'll be arranged in the mixer. If I change this to say TARE, and then I go in and create a new model, if I click on this, long press, okay, come on, work with me here, radio. It's a long press. What's going on here? All right, new model, and I use blank. If we look at the mixer now, we'll see that order that I just described, TARE, but that does not change the physical stick position. So channel 2 is now the aileron, but the stick that manipulates the aileron is still over here. So if I click on the model and move this, see channel 2 aileron, that's still moved by this stick. Okay. So don't confuse the mode. That's channel 2. Don't confuse the mode with the channel order. They're different concepts. Hopefully that makes sense. All right. RBB says for long range here in Brazil, when we make a video, we always fly in Argentina. Do you understand? Yeah, I know. I get it, man. But you know, I also think it's a bad idea for YouTubers to go out and encourage illegal behavior, and by putting it on a video. You know, so I encourage people to ignore them, but you know, you do what you got to do at your own risk. But I think it's really stupid to put video evidence up of what you're doing, and because they're going to get you for that. Spin Launch Glide says, tuning in for the finish, high and by. Well, glad you can make it, Spin Launch Glide. And Philip Jang just popped in as well. How you doing, Philip? Okay. Looks like that's all the questions. That brings me back to the desktop. And with Q&A over, we can move into what's up. What's coming up? So what's coming up is the Corsair. Corsair is done and ready to go. I should be, weather permitting, because the weather has not been cooperating with us lately, but weather permitting, we should be able to get the Corsair flown tomorrow. I'll get a video up on that. FMS just sent me their Christmas list and showed me what they're going to be putting on special for Christmas. So they asked me if I'd like to check anything out. I gave them my Christmas list. We'll see what happens. I don't know exactly what they'll agree to or what they'll send, but I did put in my wish list with FMS for the Christmas festival, and we'll see what they send me, and hopefully we'll get some videos done there. And then regarding the helicopter, all I can promise you guys, the helicopter, you saw it. The helicopter's done and ready to go. Just waiting for equipment. When that equipment arrives, I'll be getting the raw videos done as well, just as soon as possible. And that will be a really good series, very comprehensive series on the radio setup, the flybarless setup, the ESC, the wiring, the whole bit. We're going to cover it all. So a lot of good material coming on the helicopter, and I simply cannot wait to fly that raw. It looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. So that's what's coming up on, oh, and the Bandit videos. Don't forget, I will be doing production videos on the Bandit. All right. That's all I've got for tonight. I don't see any other questions, which means we're at a great stopping point. I hope you guys had a great week. I hope you have an even better weekend. I hope the weather is nice enough wherever you are that you can get out there and fly something. That's all I've got for today. Take it easy.